Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I'm Brian Manning. I'm an asylum lawyer, and I want to answer your questions today about winning asylum in America. So, I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, my law firm helps immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. And this is the Asylum Answers Show. I'm Brian Manning, and I want to know what you want to know about asylum. I'm here to answer your questions, so leave them in the chat. But before you do that, say hello. Let me know in the chat where you're watching from. Say hi. I love to see where you guys are at. So let me know in the chat. Say hello. Let me know where you guys are watching from. Hello on YouTube. Good afternoon. Good evening. Hello, TikTok. Neha. Mathochis. Hello. Elvis, glad you're here. Zach, thanks for being here. Hey, on YouTube, Salah Inventory, hello. Good afternoon. TikTok as well. Facebook. I'm Brian Manning. I'm an asylum lawyer. My law firm helps immigrants all over the country. Doesn't matter where you live. We help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. We got Salah says hello from California. Nice. Who else we got over on TikTok? Amara, thanks for joining. Wahaban, hello. Rai, hello. Let me know where you're watching from. Hey, Mike on YouTube, thanks for being with us. Where are you at, Mike? Where are you watching us from? All right. I want to answer your questions about winning asylum in America. But before I do that, let me just say a couple words about this. Look, the managing attorney for my law firm today, Jennifer, she went to a follow-up interview. What is that? And this was in Dallas. This is a follow-up asylum interview, which is it's a little odd or unusual that it's in Dallas because, as you may know, for most people that live in Texas, your interview is going to be at the Houston Asylum office. However, they do a very small number of essentially circuit ride location interviews in Dallas at the asylum, or excuse me, at the field office of the USCIS, like the sort of normal office. They do some asylum interviews there for people that live around Dallas. And so she did a follow-up asylum interview. What is a follow-up asylum interview, and why do they happen? Why does USCIS schedule follow-up interviews? So a follow-up interview could be scheduled for any reason. In this case, in fact, the original interview was 4 years ago. With this guy, and they sent him a letter a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, we need you to come back in for a follow-up interview. So sometimes you get the follow-up interview notice several years after your original interview, and sometimes you get it right away, like a day or two after. They might be like, oh wait, we need to bring you back in. Now look, usually it's no big deal. Often I would say in most cases, and I'm basing this off my experience as a former asylum officer and now as an asylum lawyer, in most cases, it's just the officer forgot to ask you some questions that they should have asked you, or they just didn't think to ask you some questions that their supervisor thinks they should have asked you based on the facts of your case. Because remember, after every asylum interview, the supervisor for the officer who did the interview has to review the notes, and they have to review what's called the assessment that the officer writes. And they sometimes say, look, you didn't do a good job, or there's more information we need, so call them back in and do a follow-up interview to get this additional information. And usually I would say it's not about anything bad. It's just they just weren't thorough enough the first time. And it's usually fine. However, sometimes it is the case that they see something in your file that they think looks a little bit suspicious, or they want to just ask you more questions about. So often it'll be like they see something that when they think about it more, they're like, wait a second, this sounds inconsistent with something something else you said at the interview, or something in your file, or they think that you're lying about something, and so they want to call you back in and kind of grill you and ask you a lot more questions about something like that. Sometimes they'll get information about a person after the interview through various means that makes them want to ask questions. They may think that you are involved in bad things due to information they've gotten after your interview, and so they want to call you back in and ask you more questions. So look, if you get one of these interview notices that you've already had your asylum interview, you're waiting for your decision, and then you get a notice saying come back in for a follow-up interview, should you worry? Not necessarily. It's probably going to be fine. It's probably going to be okay. But look, it is worth talking to a lawyer about, because sometimes these things go a little bit awry. There can be problems that come up. So it really is best to talk with an asylum lawyer right away if you get one of these follow-up interview notices. That's what I wanted to say about that. Look, I want to repeat something I said before I get to your questions. So go ahead and start. Hello. Good to see you. Our judge is approving case now. Yeah, we're going to get to that. I want to thank you for your content for people seeking asylum here in the U.S. on TikTok. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. It's my pleasure. Look, before I get to your questions, I want to just repeat something I said 2 days ago, because it bears repeating, because it's important. You need to hear this. It's still possible to win asylum. It's still possible to win asylum. It's hard. It's hard. As you know, we are bombarded pretty much every day with bad news, with news about how the Trump administration is going after asylum seekers, after immigrants in general, and asylum seekers in particular. And approval rates are low. And I think they're just going to keep getting lower throughout the rest of the Trump administration. But I assure you, it's not impossible to win. We keep winning cases. We got an approval notification. I can't remember if that was this morning or yesterday. I think it was this morning, for a case for a client from India who went through some bad things in his country. He suffered a lot, actually. But it wasn't a clear-cut case. It wasn't like 100%, oh, this is an easy, you're definitely going to win kind of case, even though he'd been through some bad things. We worked really hard to put together the best case possible for him, and he won. Today we got the approval notice. We've been getting a lot of approval notices. We keep winning cases despite everything standing against us. The administration's efforts to kick as many immigrants out of the country as possible notwithstanding, it's not impossible to win asylum. You got to put together a strong case. You got to be ready for your interview. You got to be ready for your interview. USCIS is doing a lot of interviews. They've increased their interview capacity. People are getting called for their interviews sometimes very unexpectedly, much quicker than they expected. In fact, many people who are applying for asylum right now are getting their interviews right away within like a month or two of applying, which is surprising because, look, we all know people in your communities that they've been waiting for 3 years, 6 years, 10 years for their interview, right? And so you might be thinking, oh, if I apply now, I'm going to wait for years also. I don't have to worry about the actual interview part yet, right? No, that's not how it is. In fact, you may be getting your interview right away. So you got to be ready to go, ready to prepare. Speaking of preparing for your interview, look, the documents in your case are important. They can help to build a strong case, but they're not as important as the interview. What really, really matters more than anything by far is how you do on the day of your interview. And what really matters for that, to do the best job you possibly can, is preparation, okay? I think you should hire an asylum lawyer to help you with your entire case from start to finish. But look, I know that, that's not realistic for some people. So if you can't hire a lawyer to help you from beginning to end, at least consider hiring a lawyer to help prepare you for your interview. Now, ideally, they would represent you at your interview too. But if you can't do that, at least get an asylum lawyer's help to have you practice. Okay. We offer a full-scale mock interview, a practice interview, where we go through everything from beginning to end so that you feel like you've been there. You feel like you've done that. You feel like you've experienced, because it's pretty much exactly the same almost as what you're going to see on the day of your real interview. And it will give you confidence, okay? We give you feedback. We give you tips and guidance about how to express yourself and tell your story in an impactful way, okay? So yeah, it's crucial. Look, this is interesting. Ebo Adam says, my asylum lawyer is not helping out at all. Unfortunately, a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel like their immigration lawyer is not really doing that much to help them. And I can tell you, most immigration lawyers do not do what I just described. I just described our mock interview experience where we do a full-scale practice interview. And then a day or two or three later, we do a separate session called like a feedback session or a follow-up session where we give you feedback and give you tips about how to tell your story in a more impactful way. And most lawyers don't do this, okay? So if you're thinking about hiring a lawyer to help you with your asylum case, I want you to encourage you to consider asking Well, tell me what you're going to do for me, because most lawyers won't really tell you because they're not going to do much for you. They don't really have a plan or a strategy to help you. They'll just be like, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll tell you what to expect. We'll meet like 15 minutes before the asylum interview at the asylum office. We'll meet like 15 minutes early, and I'll tell you then like what to expect and give you some tips. Like, don't worry, it'll be fine." No, that's not enough. You need way, way, way more than that. This interview is going to be harder than you expect. Okay, it's going to shock you, honestly, if you're not prepared. If you don't really know what you're getting into and you haven't practiced it, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. It's going to be hard, and you're not going to perform to the very best that is possible. And look, we're talking about your future here. We're talking about your safety and your security and the life that you're trying to build here in America. This is too important to leave it to chance. It's too important to Adam, Ibo, to stick with some lawyer who's not helping you. All right. It's not too late to change lawyers, Adam. It's not too late to change lawyers. If you want to talk with us to see if you might qualify for this mock interview service with us or for just general, lawyer representation, then I hope you'll go to this website, winasylum.com. It's WINASYLUM.com. Again, that's winasylum.com. 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 And schedule a consultation with us to see if you qualify. We don't offer this service, this mock interview service that I've been talking about. We don't offer it to everyone. We need to talk with you, get to know you a little bit, get to know your case and your situation to tell you whether we think that we can add value. If we think that you have virtually no chance of winning your case and that we can't do anything to really help you with your immigration situation, we won't go forward with this service. Like I don't feel good about accepting thousands of dollars, taking thousands of dollars from someone in attorney fees if I don't think that we can help them in some meaningful way, really help their chances for success. So the point that I'm trying to make is we don't take on everyone who comes to us as clients, and we don't offer our mock interview service just to everyone who asks for it. We first need to talk through it with you in a consultation. So if you want to schedule a consultation with us, go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. All right. winasylum.com. Let's go to the questions. We got Mike Hove says, I'm watching from DC. I have a question. If I have a question, do I just ask it here? Yeah, Mike, go ahead. I love DC. Mike, Washington, DC is one of my favorite cities in the world. I've spent time on like 3 different occasions for about 2 years cumulatively altogether in the DC area, like in Northern Virginia, when I was a diplomat, when I was there for language training and for like skills function, job function training as a diplomat with our foreign ministry. I love DC. And that's a good asylum office too, Mike. The Arlington Asylum Office is a pretty good one. They have a pretty high approval rate. They're pretty reasonable as far as these things go. All right. Salas says, my wife and son will be attending the interview with me or not. I have a 1-year-old. So look, the question is this: do your family members need to attend your asylum interview with you? Look, it depends on whether they are a dependent in your case. What does that mean? If you have checked the box on your asylum application form for the question that says, I want to include this family member in my case, if you say yes, that means they're a dependent in your case. Remember, only your spouse and your children who are under 21 at the time that you file for asylum and who remain unmarried, those are the only people that can be included in your case as a dependent. So if you said yes, I want this person to be a dependent, then yes, they have to go to your interview with you. They're almost certainly not going to be asked substantive questions about your case, but rather just going to have to answer some what are called security questions. And that just takes usually 5 or 10 minutes. But if you have other family members who are not dependents in your case, they do not need to go to the interview, to the office that day at all. Like if you have a U.S. citizen child, someone who's born here, they do not need to come with you at all. In fact, I recommend that you try to arrange for childcare for someone else to be with them so they don't have to go and you don't have to, then be worrying about them the whole time. So that's how that works. Alrighty. Let's see what's going on over on YouTube. Patel says, hey, I wanted to ask a question. Ask away, Patel. Ask away. Let me know what you got. The Cosmic Collector says, my interview's in a week and I wasn't able to get pieces of evidence translated. Do you think I can have someone fluent in both languages, not a third party, and translate and certify for me? Yeah, it doesn't have to be a professional translator. I think it's best if it is, and there's services that you can use. Sometimes we use a service called imitranslate.com, IMMITRANSLATE.com. I'm not getting paid by them or anything. We use them sometimes. imitranslate.com. They can usually do it in a couple days. You can have them do it, but it doesn't have to be a professional like that. It can be anyone who's fluent in both languages, but they have to include a little certification that says, my name is so-and-so, and I certify, or I attest that I affirm that I am fluent in both English and language, Hindi, whatever it may be, and competent to translate between the languages. And I certify that the above translation is a full and accurate and complete translation from Hindi to English, or whatever the case may be. And they have to sign it, and they should date it too. Okay. They have to put that, or else the officer will probably reject it. All right. We've got the Cosmic Collector says, I'm working with your team and I have felt so supported. Thank you so much. I did my mock interview today and I feel so much lighter. It's almost like I paid you to say that, but I didn't, I promise. Who are you? You don't have to say who you are, Cosmic Collector. Cosmic Collector, send us an email to the email address for clients, because I want to know who you are, and say, hey, Brian told me to email after I commented on a YouTube live. So I'm going to read that again. He says, I'm working with your team and I felt so supported. Thank you so much. I did my mock interview today and I feel so much lighter. What is the Cosmic Collector talking about? He's talking about the mock interview that I was talking about a couple of minutes ago. With our clients, we do a full-scale mock interview. This is a practice interview where we simulate what's going to happen in your case from the beginning, from the time you walk in the door and the officer shuts their door to the end of that interview, so that you feel like you've been there before, like you've done that. You go through everything you're going to experience. And then, so Cosmic Collector on YouTube, they did their mock interview today. Well, now we're going to do a follow-up session, what we call a debrief session, like a day or two or three later, where we give you feedback. So, we'll say the asylum lawyer who does your mock interview with you is going to be taking notes about things they want to discuss with you in your debrief session. And in your debrief session, they're going to say, okay, look, in the mock interview, when I asked you this question, you said X. Well, it was a little bit confusing the way that you phrased that. You might want to try to say it in different words just to try to be a bit clearer. And then you'll practice, trying to answer it again, saying it more clearly. We're not going to put words in your mouth. We're not going to tell you what to say. It's your story. You need to tell it, but in your own words. But we're going to give you feedback to help you just make sure that you're clear, make sure that you're hitting all the most important things, and giving the officer the information they really need to be able to see that, yes, you meet all the requirements for asylum eligibility. Okay. And so Cosmic Collector is saying, I did my mock interview today and I feel so much lighter. That's what this is all about. This mock interview that we do, it gives you confidence. You're not walking into the real interview with the anxiety that comes with when you're facing the unknown, right? Because uncertainty is stressful. When you're like, oh my gosh, I'm about to go into an asylum interview that is going to determine so much for the rest of my life. Because I'm telling you, this interview is determining what happens to you. If you win asylum, you're eligible to apply for your green card right away. After that, you're eligible to apply for U.S. citizenship. You can stay safe. You can stay here. You can build your life in America. If you lose your asylum case, you could end up getting deported. All right. So we're talking about huge, huge important stakes. And when you go into a day that important and you don't really know what you're getting into and you haven't really practiced, you haven't really prepared, that's scary. That's hard. You're not going to perform well under that kind of pressure. So our mock interview, our practice interview is really for the purpose of helping you to feel better about things, because you know what to expect. You know what it feels like to be in this position. You know what the different procedures are for the day. You know what kind of questions you're going to ask. And then we help you in our debrief session to give you feedback to make it even better, to make you do a better job. So that's exactly what Cosmic Collector is talking about here. Thank you for mentioning that, Cosmic Collector. All right. We've got Yusuf Abdi says from Seattle, Washington. I have questions. I got answers. Yusuf, let me know what questions you have. My Salazar says my asylum-based green card application has been pending for 10 months with USCIS. What can I do? I don't remember, Salazar. I don't remember what the average time is right now for a green card based on asylum. If you get to be about 6 months beyond that, beyond what the average time is, you should consider suing them to force them to make a decision, to give you a decision through a mandamus lawsuit. You may have, if you've ever seen me before on social media, you've probably seen me talk about the mandamus lawsuit. Mandamus is a weird word, I know, but basically it's a lawsuit where we sue the federal government, we sue the U.S. government, and we're asking them to take action on your to make progress on your case, to push your stalled case forward. We file a lawsuit in a federal court asking the judge to tell USCIS to do its job. Okay, the most common context in which we file this lawsuit is where someone has been waiting for their asylum interview for several years, like 5 years or more. If you've been waiting for your asylum interview for 5 years or more, you're in a very good position to have success with this mandamus lawsuit to push your case forward, to get your interview scheduled and get your decision quickly thereafter. But you can also use it to, after an interview, to force a decision, or including for a green card application. If they're just taking too long, you can use it to force them to adjudicate your application. Okay. Mike says, I had my interview over a month ago. They said they would mail my decision. Is there an average wait time? What happens if it goes over a year before I receive my decision? Good question, Mike. The question is this: how long does it usually take to get your decision after your USCIS asylum interview? Look, if you live in the area, if you live pretty near to the asylum office, very often they'll tell you to come back in 2 weeks and pick up your decision, the letter that is your decision, like pick it up in person. But if you do not live near there, or just sometimes even if you do live near there for certain reasons, they'll say, don't come back, don't come here, we're going to mail it to you. How long will that take? At least 2 weeks. Usually it's more like 3. Honestly, average is probably 6 to 9 weeks, but honestly, sometimes it's several months. Sometimes even it's years. If you have a long delay, like a month or more after your interview and you don't get your decision, if you applied for asylum at least 5 years ago, you should consider suing to force your decision. Okay. I'm not talking about 5 years between your interview and now. I'm talking about 5 years between your application and now. If that's been 5 years or more, you can sue. I think you'll be in a good position to sue, to have success with suing to force your decision. Okay. Alrighty. Very nice. Glad to see you here. Kusai Hari says, I'm one of your clients and the writ of mandamus works and my interview is on August 26th. Special thanks to your office and your team. Thank you. Thanks for saying that, Kusai. I appreciate that. And no, I didn't pay this client either, or this person either, to say, to basically say something that I was, make a point for me that I was trying to make and talking good about our office. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Kusai is saying, he says, look, I'm one of your clients and the writ of mandamus works. My interview is on August 26th. Special thanks to your office and your team. So that's a client for whom we filed this lawsuit that I was just now talking about, this mandamus lawsuit. In this particular case, I'm not sure how long Kusai's, without checking our records, I don't know how long Kusai was waiting for their interview, but at least several years. And we filed a mandamus lawsuit and we negotiated with the government about it. And the government eventually said, okay, we'll give him his interview. And they gave it to him. And now he's got it coming up in about a month. And so now comes the practice, the preparation, and the mock interview session and the debrief session, and then representing him during the interview to give him the best possible chance to win his case. All right, we've got Diraj on YouTube says, I just filed. Nice. You just applied? Okay, get ready. Diraj, I don't know if you were here a few minutes ago when I said this, but it bears repeating. Many people who are applying right now, recently, have been getting their interviews right away. So get ready. You may be getting an interview notice that says, hey, your interview's been scheduled. You got like 2 weeks to prepare. So I hope you have a lawyer, Diraj. If not, call us if you think you might want help. Or actually, don't call us. Go to winasylum.com. That's where you can go to schedule a consultation with us. If you want to talk with one of our asylum professionals so that we can get to know you and analyze your situation, talk about your case, your situation. We'll tell you whether we think that we can support you. If we think that we might be able to help you, we're going to tell you how. This is another distinction that I want to draw between my law firm and other lawyers, is that I think with most of the lawyers, you're going to call them and they're going to just say, yeah, I'll help you. Don't worry. We'll take care of it. We'll put together a good case. We'll help you. But they won't tell you how. They won't tell you about a plan or a framework, an actual system that they use to help their clients build the strongest case possible, because they don't have those things. In my law firm, we have something called our Asylum Action Plan. It's a 3-step plan. Of course, it's customized and tweaked based on your specific case, right? But we do have this framework, this approach that we use every time because it works. It's something that I developed based on my experience as an asylum officer with the government and now as an asylum lawyer, okay? Mike says, thank you. Also, thank you. Your videos helped me prepare for my interview. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for mentioning that. I'm glad to hear that. By the way, for those of you on Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, if you want to see all my best stuff, go over to YouTube. Okay, on YouTube is where I've got some really detailed and long training videos about all kinds of stuff that you need to know to give yourself the best possible chance of winning your asylum case. YouTube, if you go to YouTube and you search Political Asylum Lawyers, that's the name of my law firm, Political Asylum Lawyers, and that's the name of our YouTube channel too. So go to Political Asylum Lawyers, go to YouTube, search for Political Asylum Lawyers, you'll see my picture. It's like a red background, and that's where I've got all my best stuff. If you look on go to the playlists tab, and you'll see videos grouped together into playlists, including like asylum interview, lots of videos just about the asylum interview. And that will, I think, really, really help you. Mike is saying the videos helped a lot to prepare for the interview. Bo All In says, technically she is out of status. Where was your question? Okay, I'm going to read that. Bo, you said, my wife's niece was a derivative asylum. She married November 24th, renewed her work authorization in January as a derivative. She has not filed her change of status yet. Will she get in trouble? Is she technically out of status? Oh, I got to read that again. Okay. Changes. She has not filed her change of status yet. For what? Look. When you say she was a derivative asylum, do you mean she was included as a dependent in an asylum application that remains pending? Or do you mean she actually got asylum status as a dependent through a grant of asylum to the principal applicant? Because if she got asylum, she's good. She's not out of status. She's still an asylee. But if she was a dependent in an asylum case, actually, you know what? It's more complicated than that, Bo. Let me back up. I take back everything I just said. I can't make an analysis like that, even in a generalized way. I don't want to, without like going deep into the facts. All right. So it's tricky. It's tricky. I'll just say that for now. But if you want to talk about it, you can schedule a consultation with us and we'll talk through it. Okay. Ebo says, thanks so much for your help. Your videos are so beneficial. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. If I'm referred to immigration court by USCIS, but I have a fiance and we will be getting married in March, can I still change my status? Do you mean if your fiance is a U.S. citizen? If your fiance is a U.S. citizen and you guys get married, then yeah, she can petition for you to get a green card through her, including while you're in immigration court. And you should pursue every means that might be available to you to get status. By that, I mean, don't give up your asylum claim. Don't say, I withdraw my asylum claim. Nope. Pursue both the asylum claim and the marriage-based green card. All right. MG says, your opinion about LGBTQ from Saudi Arabia. Yeah. The question is this. Will someone from the Middle East have a good chance at winning asylum if they're a member of the LGBTQ plus community? Depends. Need to know more about your situation, but to just try to be general about it, right? Look, if someone's a gay person, let's say from Saudi Arabia, for example, yeah, you definitely have a chance of winning asylum even if you haven't personally had problems, just based on the fact that you fit the profile of someone who is likely to be persecuted because of that, then you can win asylum based on what's called a pattern or practice of persecution. You could be found to have a well-founded fear of persecution on account of a protected ground, your membership in a particular social group, and this is done under what's called a pattern or practice analysis, where basically we, in our legal brief, we discuss and cite to a bunch of country conditions information that shows that really anyone who's a member of the LGBTQ community is at significant risk of being gravely harmed because of that. And we do our legal analysis to make that case. And could we do that with Saudi Arabia? I think there's probably a pretty good argument to be made for that. All right. What do we got? Any initial change to the initial EAD processing time? I'm waiting for 40 days now. No answer. Good question. The question is this. Has the EAD processing time, the work permit processing time, changed for first-time applicants based on a pending asylum case? Has that processing time changed recently with the new Trump administration? No, not yet. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if it does. I wouldn't be surprised if it slows down considerably, but no, it has not. In fact, I actually saw a statistic about this the other day, that it was like less than a month on average for people who have an asylum case pending and they're seeking their work permit based on their pending asylum case the first time. Applying for the work permit the first time, it's normally really fast. It's under a month on average. Now, you've been waiting 40 days. Don't freak out yet. It's not that uncommon. We've definitely seen people that it's taking a little bit longer, like 40 days or 50 days. I still am hopeful and expect that you will get your approval soon. Okay. All right. Uncle Abdo says, do asylum seekers who came legally also get deported and get detained to Alligator, Alcatraz? Good question. The question is this. Are you less likely to be detained and deported if you came to the United States with a visa as compared to people who came to the border without a visa? Yeah, you are less likely to be detained by ICE and held and deported, especially under this process called expedited removal, which can lead to a very quick deportation without really much of a chance to fight your case. So yeah, look, I can't tell you, unfortunately, I cannot tell you like, oh, if you came on a visa, you're not at risk at all. Like nothing to worry about in this regard. But I do think that the risk is much, much lower as compared to people who came to the United States without a visa. We're not seeing much in the way of people that came with a visa getting detained unless they have some kind of criminal history. They did something here that makes ICE think that they're dangerous. Okay. All right. Very nice. Thank you. TikTok, hello, hello. All right. Good question. Anyang says, sir, what about, I'm part of the LGBTQ community and I was granted asylum in Europe, but unfortunately I'm struggling to learn the language. Can I apply for a tourist visa there and apply for asylum again in the United States? Thank you. Good question. The question is this. Can you get asylum in the United States if you were already granted asylum in another country? Like say, for example, you fled your country and you got asylum in Europe, let's say Germany. But it's not working out in Germany. You're not happy there. Maybe you're even in danger there still because of who you are. And you want to come to the United States and seek asylum here. Let's say that you do manage to get like a tourist visa or student visa and you come to the United States. Can you apply for asylum here? Well, you can apply for asylum here, but you're almost certainly not going to get it. You'll probably be barred from asylum in the United States due to something called the firm resettlement bar, which says if you, after fleeing your home country, if you were physically present in a third country, any other country, before coming to the United States, and you had permanent residency or something that was basically like permanent residency in that third country, then you can't get asylum here. You're considered to have been firmly resettled in that third country. If you get asylum in a third country, yeah, almost certainly the government here, the United States government, will say, no, you had the right to stay there permanently. Therefore, the firm resettlement bar applies, and you will lose your asylum case here. Not 100%. It's not impossible to win asylum after having gotten asylum in another country before coming here, but chances of success are very low. All right. Adonai says, second interview on April 18th, action taken email on May 13th. May 13th. Okay. No decision yet. FOIA result came. Most of the pages withheld. What should I expect the results, sir? What are we now? July? So it's been 2 months. The question is this. What can you expect for your asylum decision if you got called back for a second interview, right? For a follow-up interview. And then after that interview, it's taking a while to get a decision. You've been waiting a couple months since that follow-up interview, and still nothing coming in the way of a decision. Should you be worried? Look, the fact that you had a follow-up interview does not necessarily mean that there's a problem in your case. I hope you should be able to tell from the kinds of questions that you were asked at your follow-up interview whether they scheduled that because they think there's a problem with your case, like they think that you may be a danger to society or that you may be ineligible for asylum because of certain asylum rules. And if that's the case, then, then I would say that's not a great outlook for you, not a great chance for success. But if it was just a follow-up interview that was more like, it's clear the officer just forgot to ask you some questions they needed to ask, and their supervisor said, we got to call this person back to follow up, then who knows? It could go either way. The fact that it's been a couple months since your follow-up interview and you have not gotten the decision yet, I can't really make anything from that. It doesn't really mean anything one way or the other. It often takes multiple months after an interview or a follow-up interview to get the decision. Okay. If you want to talk with us about your case, about your situation, and see whether we think we might be in a position to help you, then I want you to go to winasylum.com. It's WINASYLUM.com, winasylum.com. And that's where you can schedule a consultation with one of our asylum professionals. Okay, these are highly trained professionals that are trained to analyze your case with an eye toward assessing whether we think we're in a position to support you. And if we think that we can help you, we're going to explain to you how. We're going to give you concrete steps that we will take in your case to give you the best possible chance of winning so that you can secure your future in America through asylum. So go to winasylum.com if you want to schedule that consultation with us to see if we think we can help you. Okay. Linda says, Brian, why are you not attending anymore? I thought you were taking cases. You mean me personally? Let me address it like this, Linda. This is a good question. I like it. The question is this. So am I personally going to handle your case if you hire my law firm? Almost certainly not. Look, I don't really handle many cases anymore. I have hired people that I think are better than me when it comes to actually representing you on the day of your interview or your court hearing. I want to believe that I'm still like the guy, that I'm still great when it comes to overall strategy and overall frameworks for like how to handle a case. And that's what we do at my law firm, is we follow my approach for handling cases and for building cases and for preparing you and for representing. It's my work. It's my framework, I should say. It's my approach. But I hired people that I think are better than me to carry out certain aspects of it. I think that the people that I've hired are better than me when it comes to preparing you for your interview. I think they're better than me when it comes to actually representing you in the moment, to actually advocating for you and making arguments on the spot. I think I'm okay at that stuff, but it's not my greatest strength. I think there's a lot of people that are better than me, and I went out and I hired people that I think are better than me for those things. So if you hire my law firm, you're almost certainly not going to be working or even really engaging with me, but you're going to be with people that I trust to do a great job. They're going to be executing my system in giving you the best possible chance of winning your asylum case. Okay. Nice. Al-Qas says, hi, I love your videos. I had my court hearing last year in August and haven't heard from them yet. From the immigration court? Oh, wow. Okay. Good luck. Good luck. I hope you win. If you don't, and you think you might want to appeal, call us right away, because there's not much time to appeal. In fact, that raises it's a good question. The question is this: how much time do you have to appeal a negative decision from the immigration judge in immigration court? So look, if the judge denies your case, they say, no, you don't qualify for asylum, and they give you a removal order, you have 30 days to file your notice of appeal, right? The appeal from immigration court goes to this entity called the Board of Immigration Appeals, BIA for its initials. And you have 30 days from the date of the judge's removal order to file your notice of appeal. It's not much time. If you get a removal order, you need to be on the phone the next day, the same day or the next day, talking to asylum lawyers and vetting them to figure out who you think can give you the best chance of winning your case on appeal. We help people all the time with BIA appeals. They're hard to win. They're hard to win, but it's not impossible. We've got some good staff that I think are really, really great at this, at writing the legal briefs, making the legal arguments that you need to make to win an appeal, which is different. It's a different skill set than building and presenting a case at court. It takes a different skill set to actually argue a case on appeal. And I think we've got some people in my law firm that are great at that. And so if you do get that removal order, you need to call us. I hope you call us right away. Okay. Got my interview rescheduled by USCIS this week, 2 days before the interview. Is it bad? Good question. The question is this: is it a bad sign if the asylum office reschedules your interview? So you've got it scheduled, but then you get a letter saying, wait, never mind, we're going to reschedule it. Don't come on that date. We'll get back to you later and tell you the new date at a later date. Is that bad? Does that mean that there's a problem with your case? No, almost certainly not. Look, USCIS does this all the time. It's very common to have them reschedule asylum interviews, and there's various reasons for it. Most of them are just logistical, like, oh, the officer who was assigned to your case is out sick and it looks like they're going to be out all week. Or there's a problem at the building, that the water main broke and it flooded the building and it's going to be closed for 5 days. Like, I assure you, there are all kinds of reasons that cause this to happen that have nothing to do with your actual case. Almost certainly the rescheduling has nothing to do with your actual facts of your case or you. So it's not a bad sign for your chances of actually winning your case. Almost certainly. In fact, the chances of it being a bad sign are so low that I think you do not need to worry about it at all. Okay. Providence Computational Design and Architecture says, as an F1 student, my asylum failure, but I've been maintaining my F1 status. What could happen in future limitations on USA visa? Do you mean you already did get a denial for asylum, or you're asking what will happen if you do? Let's do the second question. The question is this: what happens to you if you are a student? You've got F1 student status. You apply for asylum and you get denied, but you've still got your F1 status. What happens? So the good news is that you don't get put in deportation proceedings if you still got that F1 status. They just deny your asylum case and you stay in that F1 status. Now, it can be tricky to extend your F1 status or change schools if after you've applied for asylum. We have seen people get that F1 denied after that. I think it's very unlikely they're going to just straight up take away your F1 because you had an asylum case and you lost it. But for the purposes of the future of like renewing visas, and also, for the future, for purposes of trying to get like a tourist visa to come back to the United States, yes, the fact that you applied for asylum may make that very difficult, if not impossible, unfortunately. So that is a downside of seeking asylum, is that it makes it really hard for you to come back to the United States pretty much ever as a tourist or in really any non-immigrant visa capacity, including F1. All right. Do you have an office in NYC, says Ahmedou Jean Gomis? Good question. The question is this. So where does my law firm have offices, and where do we support clients? So look, we're based in Houston. Okay. We're based in Houston, Texas, but it doesn't matter because we help clients all over the country. We have clients in New York, Florida, California, of course, Texas, where we're based, lots around Chicago, lots around Atlanta, Denver. We have clients all over the country. And this is actually a major benefit of the fact that this is immigration law we're talking about, where you can hire an immigration lawyer in any state. As long as your immigration lawyer is licensed to practice law in any state, in a state in the U.S., they can do immigration law because it's federal. They can do immigration law in all of the states. I can represent you, even though I'm in Texas and you're in New York, I can be your lawyer for immigration matters. Okay. So you get to choose the whole country. You get to look in the whole country to find the very best lawyer for you, the person you think is best equipped to give you the best possible chance of winning your asylum case. Okay. So yeah, we can help you in New York, even though we don't have an office there and we're based in Texas. We help people all over the country. So call us today, or better yet, go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. If you think you might want to work with us, you might want our help, whether it's for like a full representation, or if you just want that mock interview, that practice interview that I was talking about earlier, it all starts with a consultation with one of our asylum professionals, and you can schedule that at winasylum.com, 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 okay? That's where you can go to do this, and I want to talk with you, all right? Go right now. In fact, you don't have to wait for this live to end. Just pull up another window and you're on your mobile or on your browser, and just go to winasylum.com and schedule a consultation with us right now, okay? All right. De Dontobelli says, my asylum's been pending for 8 years with USCIS. I'm yet to get an interview. What can I do in this case? Good question. The question is, I'm so glad you asked. The question is this. So what can you do if your asylum case has been pending with USCIS for a long time, for several years, 5 years, 8 years, 10? Yes, there's people who've been waiting for an interview for 10 years. So you've been waiting for years. They haven't scheduled your interview, and you're sick and tired of waiting. You want to get that interview so you can win your case, so you can move on with your life, right? With certainty and confidence about your ability to stay safe, stay here, and build the life in America that you dreamed of building. So what can you do if you've been waiting years for that interview and your case is just stuck? How do you get it unstuck? You sue the government. This is called a Mandamus lawsuit. We love doing this. We've done this, I think, maybe a couple 200 times, I think, in the last, 2 years. And it's extremely powerful. Our clients love it because it works. We sue the government in a lawsuit in federal court and ask the judge to tell USCIS, hey, give our client their interview now and give them a decision right away, because this delay is unreasonable. We file suit, we negotiate with the government, and eventually we get your interview scheduled. And then you get your decision usually very quickly, within a couple of weeks, 2 to 4 weeks after your interview. If you're sick of waiting, we should talk about suing the government through a mandamus lawsuit. We love doing this, and I want to talk to you about it. Go to winasylum.com. Please go to winasylum.com. That's WINASYLUM.com. Go to winasylum.com to schedule this consultation. Do it right now, all right? Thanks. All right. Okay. Good Man says, why are they charging new applicants $550 for work authorization? I mean, it's from the big, beautiful bill, right? Look, I believe that the administration wants to make life as hard as possible on immigrants. They want people to give up and go home, and they want to discourage immigrants from coming here. So you can do that. One of the ways to do that is by charging them more money for things. Like in the past, it's been free, right, for first-time applicants. Now there's a fee. There's lots of other, there's a fee now to apply for asylum, which didn't used to exist. So I think that's why. All right. All right. We got VMView says, hello, Brian from Phoenix. VMView, you're one of our clients, aren't you? I'm pretty sure you're one of our clients. Good to hear from you, VMView. Who is this? Norair Gevorkian. Gevorkian. Says, hey, I'm your client. So grateful for all the useful info you give, Brian. Thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to give the info and glad to be your lawyer. Thank you for putting your trust in my law firm. We appreciate it. We take it very seriously, and we're grateful for the opportunity. Leonardo Silva says, hey, Kusai, same here in the same area, Arlington, Virginia. Good question. Sushi. Oh, it's a cool YouTube handle you have there. Sushi. It says, I have a question. Will the officer tell you during the first interview if a second interview is going to be needed? Good question. And the question is this. So during your asylum interview with USCIS, will the officer tell you sort of what happens next? Like, will they tell you, hey, I'm going to give you asylum or I'm not going to give you asylum? Will they tell you if they think that maybe a follow-up interview is going to be required? Do they tell you these things at the end or during your first interview? No. They will definitely not tell you their decision. They will not tell you or even hint about whether they're going to approve or deny your case. They also will not say, oh yeah, I think we're going to need a follow-up interview in this case. I mean, look, the norm is that you just do one interview. Sometimes there's a follow-up interview. That's not normal. But even if the officer thinks that there's probably going to be one, they're almost certainly not going to tell you that during the first interview. So you're just going to kind of be in like the dark. You're not going to know about what's going to happen next, except they're going to tell you how you'll get a decision. They'll say either come back in 2 weeks for your decision, or they'll say we're going to mail it to you. But they don't tell you what it's going to be, and they don't tell you whether they might actually end up scheduling a follow-up. Okay. Oma says, how about the Mandamus lawsuit? Do you think it's getting dismissed more under the Trump administration? Mine is 4 years old. Let me address it like this. The question is this. Under the Trump administration, how long do you need to wait before suing the government through a Mandamus lawsuit to force them to give you your delayed asylum interview? Okay, look, we used to do this at 3 years. All over the country, we used to say, if you've been waiting 3 years, then you can hire us to do a Mandamus lawsuit, and we think that there's a good chance for success with it, with getting your interview scheduled at 3 years. We've changed it. We're saying 5 years now because we were getting motions to dismiss. For people that had been waiting at least 3 years, but under 5, the government, they started fighting those. And we've had a few cases where we've gotten motions to dismiss filed, and so far we haven't had any dismiss. We've been able to hold them off and keep them alive so far. But it's tough when they do that. It makes the case harder, and it's not a good position to be in. So at my law firm, we're saying you got to wait 5 years before we'll take your Mandamus lawsuit. That could change, but right now it's 5 for us. Bo says, you're still the best. Thank you. Appreciate that on YouTube. Taylor says, I'm considering applying for asylum as an atheist from Turkey. Would my claim be strong enough if I experience long-term social isolation and discrimination, but no physical violence? Good question. The question is this. So can you win asylum in the United States, even if you've never experienced physical harm? Let's say that maybe you've been discriminated against and sort of like socially isolated and maybe even harassed, but there's no physical harm. Can you win asylum? Well, look, the answer is yes, you might be able to. The mere fact that you've never been physically harmed in the past does not mean you can't win asylum, because the asylum officer is looking at two things. They first are going to ask you a lot of questions about the past to see whether the harm that you suffered in the past is sufficiently severe to constitute persecution, to rise to the level of persecution. And it's hard to get there without physical harm. It's not impossible, but it's hard to get there without physical harm. But even if the officer says, okay, We've analyzed your situation. I've concluded that you did not suffer past harm that constitutes persecution. It's not the end of the analysis. They're next going to look toward the future, and they're going to say, okay, is it likely in the future that you're going to be persecuted, that you're going to be harmed in a way that is sufficiently severe to constitute persecution? And you can win that argument, this forward-looking, well-founded fear argument, based on either the fact that you specifically have like been targeted and someone actively wants to harm you, or you can do it based on the fact that you fit the profile of people who are widely persecuted in your country because of the fact that they possess this protected characteristic. And that's called a pattern or practice argument. And it can be tough to win, but we do win those cases frequently with what I think is good lawyering. So look, short answer is like, it's not impossible to win without past harm. It helps to win if you have past harm, physical harm, but it's not impossible. Okay. Specifically though, to address your question about, or your scenario of atheist in Turkey, it's tough. It's a tough case to win. I think it's a tough case to win. Not impossible, but tough. We should definitely talk. Okay. We should talk. I hope you'll call us. If you're seriously considering applying for asylum, I really think it makes sense for you to talk with an asylum lawyer to further explore this possibility. So if you want to talk with us, you can do that at winasylum.com. That's WINASYLUM.com. Winasylum.com. Okay. WINASYLUM.com. Okay. Yeah, I thought you were a client, VMView. I thought that looked familiar. VMView says, last year my asylum was approved. Thanks for helping me. Your office helped me to file my I-485. Awesome. In case ICE detains me, how can I contact you? No criminal records. Well, VMView, you should keep our number handy and keep our office number saved in your phone. But I mean, also if you carry a wallet or something else, like, you save it on a physical piece of paper too and call us if you get detained. I hope you don't. All right. Thomas says, when a case is joined where asylum for two people together, a kid and a mom, do they take the interview together? Good question. The question is this. Does a child need to attend your asylum interview with you? Like, let's say you have a child and you've included them as a dependent in your asylum application. Do they have to go to the asylum interview? And if so, are they going to be asked questions about the case? So look, yes, anyone who's included as a dependent in your asylum case does need to go to your interview with you. They're not going to be asked substantive questions about your case. Almost certainly. They are, though, for sure going to be asked what are called security questions. It's basically like, are you a terrorist or are you a criminal? Have you done bad things? It's questions like that asked like 15 different ways, but it doesn't take long. It takes usually 5 to 10 minutes. And they ask those questions even to children. And they ask them even to babies. For like kids that are too young to understand, they still ask the child, but they have the parent reply in their place. So they got to be in the asylum interview room for that process, the security questions, but they will not be in the room with you for the rest of the questions. They'll wait in the waiting room. And so for that reason, you need to take someone else with you that can sit with them in the waiting room. Okay. I'm a Hindu Christian from PPP says, I'm a Hindu Christian from India and have recently been threatened with a knife due to my beliefs in refusing to perform a Hindu ritual. I fled to safety. How do you record these incidents for the asylum case? I had not till now, but seeing worsening conditions here, I've begun considering asylum. I guess the question that you're asking, the question is this: how do you get evidence around things that have happened to you that could be relevant to use in your asylum case as proof, as evidence in your asylum case? Well, look, if you've got things like photographs of, maybe showing injuries that you suffered, or if there's anything you can point to, like a message, for example, that you sent to a family member or a friend right after something happened, like after a big threat occurred or something, you can, you could use that. You could show the dialogue back and forth between you and, your mom or whoever it may be that you told about the incident. I mean, that's not as good as a direct threat from the persecutor, but the fact that you were talking about this thing back then, back when it happened, might support your case. So really, we're looking for anything that just helps show the officer that you've been threatened or harmed, or in some cases that you possess a protected characteristic under U.S. asylum law. Okay. Viton says USA or Canada is the best place for asylum application in U.S. visa. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. If you're asking whether the U.S. or Canada is better for asylum, I don't know. I don't know anything about Canadian asylum law. It's probably pretty similar to ours. Most countries' asylum framework, their laws are pretty similar because they're all based on the same United Nations Convention, as far as I know. But there will be some differences. So I don't know for sure I don't know which is like considered easier to win. I don't know about that. Okay. De Dontobelli says, please help me, is asking Kusai, please help me with the team contacts you worked with for the writ of Mandamus, have an asylum pending since 2016 at Arlington, Virginia. De, why not call me? Why not me? I'm going to tell you something here, De Dontobelli, that I have to be careful how I say this. Look, past performance does not guarantee future results, okay? Having said that, I'm happy to tell you we haven't lost a Mandamus lawsuit yet. I told you earlier we filed like 100, I think like 200, at least 150, 200, maybe 200 in the last couple of years. We haven't had one dismissed yet. Okay. It works. It's a powerful, powerful tool. It works. Okay. If you think you might want to sue to force your case forward, we should talk about this, D or De Dontobelli. Okay. You can call us at 713-909-0401. Again, 713-909-0401. Okay. Musab Yahya says, I requested a humanitarian expedite with EOIR 2 months ago and still haven't heard anything back in Minnesota. Yeah, they usually, I'm sorry, Musab, to hear that. They usually do not grant those. In fact, they might not ever even answer or make a decision on your request. Okay. Anyang says, I'm going to watch this again later. Thank you for enlightening me, attorney. Thank you. Good night. Good night, Anyang. Yeah, you can watch this live that we're doing right now. This will be on YouTube. For those of you on TikTok and LinkedIn, Facebook, if you want to see this again or watch old lives that I've done, you can see those on YouTube. They stay. If you go to my YouTube channel, which is Political Asylum Lawyers, there's a tab that's like live. It says live, and you can see all the old lives. You can watch this and other lives again. Okay. All right. AYP says, if I'm 21 and I was added as a dependent on my dad's asylum case 8 years ago when I was a kid, but we have the interview next month, what happens to me if it gets denied? Yeah. So the question is this. So let's say that you're a dependent in your parents' asylum case and they applied for asylum when you were still a kid. You were like 12, 13, whatever. And now maybe you're an adult, you're 21, and the interview has been scheduled. Your parents have to appear and you have to appear because you're part of the case for the asylum interview. What happens if that case gets denied? If you don't have any kind of legal status, which you probably don't if you've been here for several years, then you're going to get sent to immigration court. The judge, or excuse me, the asylum officer will, they say transfer or refer your case to immigration court, which means the government's trying to deport you. The good news is you don't have to leave right away. You're going to have a process in court where you get to, basically another chance, you get to explain to the judge your case and the judge will make a decision. But look, you don't want that to happen. You want to win your case as soon as possible at the first instance in your case with USCIS. So if you've got this interview coming up, you should call us right away back. In fact, don't call, go to winasylum.com, like literally right now, and schedule a consultation. Okay. We should talk about this situation, talk about your case. I want to see if we think that we can help you. If your interview is coming up in about a month or so, there is still time for us to do like the full case workup. And even if it gets to be where there's not that much time, or maybe you're not in a position to hire a lawyer for like the full representation, we should at least do the mock interview, the practice interview. That's the most important thing. It makes all the difference, in my opinion, in my experience. All right. Speaking of making all the difference, VMView, one of our former clients, says, Brian, I've been working with you on supplemental filing, Mandamus, and adjustment of status. It was an amazing journey. Thank you. You're welcome. It's our pleasure. Thank you. And VMView, our client, mentioned Mandamus. So we filed a Mandamus lawsuit. It was successful. We got their interview scheduled. And then they mentioned the supplemental filing. That's referring to a packet of documents that we call an asylum roadmap. And it raises a question. And the question is this. So what kind of documents do we file with the asylum office in your asylum case? So we create something that we call an asylum roadmap. Asylum roadmap. We call it this because it's basically like a map that's showing the officer how to get to the answer yes in your case in the easiest way possible. It consists of 3 elements. First is a declaration from your perspective that we're going to work through together, where you're telling your story in a compelling way, showing the officer everything they need to see to know that you meet all of the asylum eligibility requirements. The second element of the asylum roadmap is evidence. We're going to analyze your case, and we're going to make a list of evidence that we think you should try to get. You're going to get what you can. We're going to assess it and decide which pieces to use. The third element of the asylum roadmap is the legal brief that my office writes, in which we connect all the dots. We pull everything together and we do a legal analysis to make legal arguments to show the officer why you deserve asylum and how you're eligible for each how you meet all the eligibility requirements. Okay. So we pull all this together and we send this in. This is our asylum roadmap filing. The idea here, the goal is that when you walk into your asylum interview, we want that officer to already be thinking, okay, hey, based on the documents in this person's case, I already understand the case in a deep way, and I can see how they're eligible for asylum. That is the mindset that we're trying to produce in the officer's mind ahead of time. We're trying to persuade them, if you will. We do this through our asylum roadmap, and it's an important part of helping our clients present the strongest asylum case possible. All right. MG says, is there a difference between asylum offices in different states? What about Virginia? Yeah, the question is this. Is there a difference in the approval rate among the different asylum offices, in different places in the United States? And which one's the best, if so, and which one's the worst? Yeah, there's a big difference. The asylum offices have not published data or statistics about this in several years. But what I can tell you based on that old data, and then based also just anecdotally on our own experiences with the various asylum offices, because we work with all of them. We have clients all over the country, so we deal every day with asylum offices in various places. And I can tell you that the south of the country is tough to win asylum. So places like Houston, where I used to be an asylum officer, the Houston Asylum Office, the Miami Asylum Office, those places have low approval rates. The best place in terms of the highest approval rate normally is San Francisco. Los Angeles out in California also normally has a higher approval rate. So it's like San Francisco is usually the best. Los Angeles is usually second or third best. Kind of the next tier down of like, okay, they're still pretty good, is like the Arlington Asylum Office is pretty good, and Chicago is pretty good. But then there's a big drop off where down below that, it's like Houston and Miami are terrible for approval rates. Surprisingly, the New York Asylum Office has a low approval rate. Immigration courts in New York have a higher approval rate, but the Asylum Office in New York has a low approval rate. Boston has a low approval rate, somewhat surprisingly. So yeah, there's a big difference. Yeah, so Israr just asked about Boston. What's the approval rate of the asylum office in Boston? Yeah, it's low. Look, according to the most recent statistics from like 3 or 4 years ago, I think the national approval rate, the average nationwide was like 27%, I think. I have to imagine it's significantly lower now. I would guess it's 20%, maybe even 15 at the asylum offices. I did see just a few days ago or yesterday that the immigration court approval rate has fallen in the last few months or over the last few months to, I think it was 24 or 25% approval rate. And I would have to imagine that the asylum office is probably even lower. For a long time, for decades, I think, the asylum office had a higher approval rate than the immigration courts, but that switched a few years ago. And for the last few years, the immigration courts have had a higher approval rate than the asylum offices. So recently, again, this immigration court approval rate was like 24, I think, maybe as high as 26 at the highest. I would guess, I'm pretty confident that the asylum office approval rate nationwide is under that. It's probably 20, maybe even as low as like 15. Leonardo says, I've applied for asylum in Arlington. Okay, good luck, man. Ashok Patel says, hey Brian, I want to hire you for my adjustment of status based on asylee status. I really like the way you explain and do things regarding asylum. Thank you. Yeah, look, I hope that you will. Sorry, my watch is going off there. Ashok, yeah, call us. Don't call us. It's better to schedule this consultation online. Quicker, easier, faster. Go to winasylum.com. WINASYLUM.com. Again, that's winasylum.com to schedule a consultation. It all starts with a consultation. All right. Yep. Nasim says, Houston office often refers cases to court. Can tourist visas seeking asylum be arrested at their master hearing? If a judge denies asylum, is an appeal possible, or will asylum seeker be detained? Yeah, look, Nasim, yeah, you're right. The Houston asylum office is tough. They have a low approval rate. That's where I used to work. I was an asylum officer there a few years ago, and the approval rate has dropped drastically there. But your questions are, yeah. So the question is this. So if you came to the United States on a visa, like a tourist visa, you had your interview with USCIS, you got denied or you got referred over to immigration court, are you likely to be detained at your master calendar hearing, your first hearing in immigration court? And the answer is no. I think it's unlikely. As long as you don't have like a criminal record, then the risk of being detained at that first hearing is pretty low. I still think, though, that it's best to try to skip that hearing. Let me be clear about this. I don't mean that you should just not show up. What I mean is you should try to get the judge to cancel it and skip straight to the individual hearing. You do that by filing what are called written pleadings, where basically you do on paper what would normally be done in person on the day of a master calendar hearing. You do it on paper, you submit it, and then you also submit a motion to schedule the main hearing, the individual hearing. And in that motion, you're like, look, judge, we're submitting these written pleadings, so we're already doing the stuff on paper that we would do in person, so there's no need to come in person, so we don't need to have that master calendar hearing. Could you please just cancel it and go ahead and schedule the main hearing, the individual hearing? And usually they say yes, and then they cancel the master calendar hearing, and then you just have to go to the individual hearing, and the risk of arrest at an individual hearing is lower. So I recommend that you try to do that, okay? And usually people would want a lawyer to help them with that, and that's what we do in almost all of our cases. We think it's best to do that. All right. Andrea Diaz says, I had my interview 6 months ago with USCIS. I've not received an answer yet. Is it normal? The question is this. Is it normal to wait several months, like 6 months, for a decision after your asylum interview with USCIS? It's not unheard of. In fact, I would say it's not uncommon even. Look, it's much more common for it to just be maybe a month, 1 to 3 months, but it's not uncommon for it to stretch up to 6 months. First of all, I think you should reach out to the asylum office, send an email that says, hey, I had my interview on X date. Could you please let the asylum officer who did my interview know that I'm happy to provide any other documents or information that they might need to make a decision in my case. By the way, would it be possible to let me know when I can expect that decision? So, rarely, but sometimes that's enough to get the decision, because the officer will get that email, hopefully, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that case. I guess I could just finish that one off. I guess I'll do that one now. So sometimes it works. But if it doesn't work and you've been waiting at least 5 years, if you applied for asylum 5 or more years ago, you should consider suing to force them to give you that decision. Okay. Sophia Dixit says, hello, Brian. I was interviewed on July 1st at New York. Roman was my attorney from your office. It went really well. Glad to hear it. She told us the result will be mailed. Should I be worried? She didn't ask me to pick it up. No, you don't need to be worried about that. No, it happens all the time. It's normal. Don't worry about it. I'm glad you had a good experience with Roman. Roman is one of our attorneys. He's pretty new with our firm. He's been with us, 6 months, maybe 9. Pretty new, but he's doing a great job. He knows his stuff, and he's a very, I think Sophia, you would agree, he's a lovely person to deal with. He's got this great attitude, nice demeanor. He's a pleasure to deal with. Good asylum lawyer. Thank you for commenting. Oh, interesting. Elena says, I have my USCIS asylum interview in a couple of days. I wrote a legal brief by myself, including country conditions. I'm from Ukraine. Do you think I should take it with me? Yeah. I mean, look, it can't hurt. Yeah, it can't hurt, Elena. Like, look, I mean, do I think it's a good idea for people to write their own legal brief? Not really, but like, if obviously it's too late now to hire a lawyer. Yeah, sure. Take it with you. Well, okay, look, here's one thing you need to be aware of. If it's a few pages long or more and the country conditions information is dense, and you take it to them and you're like, hey, I want the officer to consider this. The officer might say, okay, but if you want me to consider this, we're going to have to reschedule your interview. They do that sometimes if you try to bring in new evidence or a legal brief on the day of the interview. They can say, okay, but we're going to have to reschedule to give me time to review this. And then you might have to decide, okay, well, do I want to do that? Or do I want to say, never mind, don't consider it. We won't include it. You don't have to consider it. Let's go ahead with the interview today. So you'll be thinking about that. That might be a decision that you have to make. Okay, Elena? Yeah. Elena, where are you from in Ukraine? I spent a month on the Sea of Azov near Melitopol. It was awesome. It was great. It was a great month. And then spent a few days in Kiev, which was great. It was beautiful. I like Ukraine a lot. Раньше говорил по-русски. Сейчас, к сожалению, нет. Good luck, Elena. Oh, so Elena, in your case, for Ukrainians, unless you have like specifically been targeted and you have reasons to believe that someone like is coming for you and wants to harm you specifically, probably for people that can't say that can't say, oh yeah, someone is like harmed me or someone wants to harm me in particular, but rather they're applying more so based on sort of the general conditions. I think your best argument is that Russia is targeting civilians and that this constitutes persecution on account of nationality. Because there is case law that says that, there's case law that says, like, look, just general war and fighting is not usually persecution on account of a protected ground. However, like if you're someone who's afraid, like, I'm going to get killed because there's a war going on in my country and lots of people are getting killed, usually that by itself is not enough because it's not considered to be persecution on account of a protected ground. However, there's case law that says if one of the combatants is purposely targeting civilians, that could be considered persecution on account of your nationality. It could be race. It could be any of the 5 protected grounds, but in this case, it's probably in the situation of Russia and Ukraine. It's probably most properly characterized as nationality, or it could be race, I guess. And so that's I think the argument that you're making, and that's what your country conditions information should be about, is about how Russia is targeting civilians. That's the main COI, country conditions or country of origin information that you probably want to use. This is not legal advice. I'm speaking in generalities about Ukrainians, not about you. When I say you, Olena, I was referring to Ukrainians might want to consider this sort of thing in general. It wasn't specific legal advice for any particular person. Diego Alves says, is it normal for USCIS to skip over the asylum interview after applying for affirmative asylum? Example, have a merit hearing, no asylum interview, then schedule an individual hearing? No. They're saying, Diego, if you applied with actually there's different circumstances under which you could have applied with USCIS, but then they don't do the interview. Instead, your case goes to immigration court. There's different scenarios under which that can happen. So without, I'd have to know what sort of, I'd have to ask questions about your particular situation to be able to tell you like whether it's normal or what it means and why I think it happened. Okay. Nice. Ashok says, Mr. Manning, thank you for all the help, the tutorials that you have available on your channel that really help in my asylum case, and eventually by God's will, I will win my case. Nice. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for the kind words. Ashok's talking about our YouTube channel, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook. YouTube is where I've got all my best stuff. Okay. Lots of full length, very detailed trainings, tutorials about all kinds of stuff you need to know if you really are serious about winning your asylum case. Go to YouTube and search for Political Asylum Lawyers. That's the name of the YouTube channel, and it's the name of my law firm. But if you want to talk with us, if you think, look, I'm ready to talk with an asylum professional, I want you to go to winasylum.com. It's WINASYLUM.com, winasylum.com. And that's where you can schedule a consultation with us, okay? Winasylum.com, all right? Wow. This is a nice one. Habtamu Gebre says, are you from the Horn of Africa? Are you from Ethiopia or Eritrea? Habtamu says, hi, Brian. You're the most generous, helpful lawyer I've ever seen on YouTube. God bless you. I will refer to anybody in need of asylum lawyer to you. That's super, super generous. I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words, and I wish you all the best. So Tired says, do you guys work with asylum seekers who cross the border? Yes, we work with asylum seekers who cross the border as well as those who came on a visa. Yeah. All right. Gehad Adele on YouTube says, thanks for your help, always, and support, but I have a question. How long usually Arlington office to get a decision mailed? I did my interview on June 27, 2025, and I applied in 2017. So your interview is like a month ago. Look, I don't know. As I said earlier, the average is maybe like 2 or 3 months to get it mailed to you, but it could be longer. If you get to 2 months, I would email the asylum office. If you get to 3 months, you should consider suing them. We could sue them. You applied in 2017. You're in a very strong position to force them to give you the decision by way of a Mandamus lawsuit, which raises an important question. The question is this. So will suing the government to force them to finally give you your asylum interview, or if you've already had your interview and you're waiting on a decision, will suing them to get your decision, will either of these things hurt your case? Look, it's completely reasonable to wonder about this and to think that, you know what, I don't know if it's such a good idea to sue the government. It might make them mad at me. It might make them, want to sort of get back at me and take revenge and deny my case because they're mad at me. I get that. That's totally reasonable, understandable to think that. The good news is that's not how it works. I tell you with full confidence that I truly believe that suing the government in a Mandamus lawsuit to advance your stalled asylum case will not hurt your underlying case. I'm telling you this as a former asylum officer who interviewed and made decisions in cases where the person had sued the government. And I'm telling you now as an asylum lawyer whose law firm has filed well over 100, I think probably 200, Mandamus lawsuits. I'm telling you, it will not hurt your underlying asylum case. Is what I truly, truly, truly believe. In my experience, in my professional experience and opinion, it will not hurt your case. The fact that you have sued will not make it any less likely that you'll win asylum. So don't worry about it. Okay. Okay. Very nice. Sophia says, by the way, I was happy with Ramon's closing statement. Nice. Thank you. Glad to hear that he treated that well, or did well with that. Hi, Brian. Please clarify between approval rate of New York Bethpage, Long Island, and Manhattan, which is under the Newark field office approval rate. Mine was Manhattan, Newark. That's good news. Newark is the Newark Asylum office, and the Manhattan sub office that's under Newark has a higher approval rate than Bethpage. Bethpage is very low. So good news for you. All right. Oh, snap. It's Gray says, what are we chatting about, good sir, on this fine evening? We're talking about asylum in America. We're talking about how to give yourself the best possible chance to win your asylum case, to secure your future in America through asylum. That's what we're talking about. Oh, snap. It's Gray on YouTube. Okay. Good question. Ismail says, Ari Maz says, how many support letters do we need for our original story? More letters means always better or not? Good question. The question is this. Do you need witness letters or letters from people to try to back up what you're saying in your asylum case? And if so, how many do you need? Is it the more the better? Look, if you can get letters from people that have information about your case, that have personal knowledge of things that may be helpful, then yeah, you should try to get some. Like if they witnessed an event of harm against you or a threat against you, that could definitely be helpful. How many do you need? Do you need to get like 5 for an incident? No. I would say not more than 2, 3 at the most for describing a certain incident. If you have 20 letters, support or witness letters in support of your case, it's going to be overwhelming for the officer. That's too much to consider. You don't want to have that many support letters. Also, with more letters, the more room there is for inconsistencies. Because look, even if they're telling the truth and it's real what they're saying, there's still a chance that there's a little thing here or there that either is inconsistent with what someone else has said or what you have said or what you're going to say at your interview, or at least it looks to be inconsistent. And that can ruin your case. So you got to be real careful with evidence. I really hope you have an asylum lawyer helping you with this, because evidence can be tricky. It can be helpful, but it can also be dangerous. Okay. It can ruin your case if it's not done well. So be careful. All right. Saeed says, if my asylum case is denied, will I lose my F1 status and face removal? The question is this. If your asylum case is denied by USCIS, will you lose your student status? So let's say you've got F1 student status. You apply for asylum and USCIS says, nope, denied. What happens to your student status? Do you lose it? Could you be deported? The good news is that no, you almost certainly won't lose your student status. You get to stay there in your student status until it ends. We have seen people get denied when they go to try to sort of extend that status or like change schools or go to graduate school because they'd applied for asylum. Because when you apply for asylum, you're basically raising your hand and saying, hey, I want to stay here permanently. And that is inconsistent with seeking a short-term, a non-immigrant visa like a student visa. But the good news is I don't think I've ever seen the government just straight up take it away from someone who already has F1 status because they lost their asylum case or because they applied for asylum. I don't think I've ever seen that. So that's good. The bottom line in summary is I don't think you need to worry about losing your F1 status if you lose your asylum case. I think you'll be able to stay through the end of your F1 status. So, good news, right? Good question. What's the best way to apply for affirmative asylum, online or by mail? Good question. The question is this. Should you apply for asylum with USCIS online or the old-fashioned way by physical papers, by physical mail, by post. Online. Easy answer. There's no two ways about this. There's no it depends. Online. Well, look, there's a few people that due to certain circumstances are ineligible to apply online, but if you try to apply online and you're not eligible to do it, you'll get a rejection letter that says, "Hey, you're not eligible to apply online. You need to apply by paper," and then you should apply by paper or by mail. But if you're eligible to apply online, you should apply online. It's better. It's faster. It's faster to manage. You maybe most importantly, you get the receipt notice, the letter that says, "Hey, we've accepted your application and it's pending as of X date." You get that like right away, sometimes immediately after you file, usually with it by the end of the next business day. As where if you apply by paper, by mail, it's going to take several months. We've seen it take a year for people to get the receipt notice, and you can't get your work permit until you get that receipt notice. I mean, you have to wait at least 150 days after having applied for asylum to be eligible to apply for your work permit based on a pending asylum case. But you also cannot do it if you don't have the receipt notice first. Okay, so if you apply by mail and it takes them 10 months to process your case and put it in the system and send you the receipt notice, you're not going to be able to get your work permit for those 10 months. Okay, online is way better. All right. Selehadin Saeed says, "I flew here with the visa in 2022 and applied for asylum within 1 year, but I overstayed my visa. How likely am I to get detained? Should I file a Mandamus lawsuit? My case is in the Arlington Asylum office." Look, my office would say we were not in a position to do your Mandamus because you've been waiting less than 5 years. For us right now, we're saying 5 years, unfortunately, is what you need to be waiting for us to take your Mandamus case. But let me address the other part of your question. How likely are you to get detained? Good question. So the question is this. Let's say you came to the United States on a visa, like a tourist visa or a student visa, and you apply for asylum during your first year here. But then you stay, right? And you've stayed now past the time that you were allowed to stay under the terms of your admission. Like when you came into the airport, they either stamped in your passport physically, or you can find online your form I-94 that says you have permission to stay until X date. Well, you stayed after X date. So are you at risk of being detained because you overstayed? I can't say there's no risk, but I can tell you that the risk, I think, is probably pretty low, right? As long as you came on a visa. For people that came here without a visa, the risk of detention, honestly, is very real, very pressing, very serious. But if you came on a visa, I think you're probably going to be okay. Even though, you stayed. Like, look, when you apply for asylum, you get a letter that says you have permission to stay in the United States while your case is pending. It doesn't technically give you legal immigration status, but it's the government saying, we're going to give you a chance to fight your asylum case. And they are, to my knowledge, as far as I know, respecting that, at least for people who came on a visa. Okay? So I think you'll be okay. All right. Let's see. Nice. Sophia has said on here that she's one of our clients, or was one of our clients, and she had her interview recently, is waiting for a decision. She says, "For all the people here, I submitted over 100 pieces of evidence, U.S. Department of State, Open Door, Human Rights, etc., with our name in those reports. I was surprised that my legal brief had more than 315. You mean 315 pages of country conditions information? Is that what you're saying?" And then she says, "Great job. Thank you, Sophia. I appreciate it." I think what it sounds like what Sophia is trying to say is that she thinks we did a good job with the legal brief and the country conditions information. So thank you for going out of your way to say that, Sophia. I appreciate it. Wow. Eureka pilot, if you're in Ireland, I can't. We're not in a position to help you. We only help people in the United States, unfortunately. Sophia, going back to Sophia, she says, also, Rahman was always available with me via virtual calls. Valentina, Madeline, Anuj were also helpful and sensitive about our case. I testify that Brian Manning's firm is the most genuine. Thank you. Super kind of you. I wish I could pay you for that, but I can't do that. Thank you for the endorsement, Sophia. Very, very kind of you. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to support you. It's an honor and a pleasure that we take it really seriously. So thank you. All right. Gâteau au chocolat says, hi, Brian, can you tell us more on the new green card that can be granted to C8s if they meet the requirements, like having been in the U.S. for 10 years, taxpayer, and no criminal record? I can tell you that there's no such thing. That's not a thing. There's no new green card like that. There's no, you may have heard talk about ideas about something like that, but it's not something that happened. There's no, look, let me address it like this. The question is this. Is it true that you can get a green card, permanent residence in the United States, if you've been here for like a certain amount of time, like 10 years, or, you know, maybe you've been here a certain amount of time and you show that you paid taxes or some things like this? No, unfortunately, it's absolutely not true. There's a lot of rumors out there. There's a lot of misinformation. There is absolutely no path, no mechanism that allows you to get any kind of status just because you've been here for a long time. This is adjacent to, there's this thing called cancellation of removal, that for people who are in immigration court proceedings, meaning the government's trying to deport them, they can apply for a way to get a green card if they were here for 10 years before they got put in removal proceedings. They were here for 10 years before the notice to appear was issued and filed with the court. And they show that they have a U.S. citizen spouse or child who would suffer like severe harm if they were to get deported. And that's hard to prove. Usually the people that win this kind of case are people that have a spouse or citizen who like has special health issues or special educational needs or something, and they're the only person who can take care of them. So it's very hard to win is the point. But you have to have been here for 10 years before you got put into deportation proceedings. You cannot apply for this outside of deportation proceedings. You have to be in deportation proceedings to be able to apply for cancellation of removal. That's the closest thing there is to what was described in the question as like, oh, is there some path, you know, if you're here for 10 years to get the green card? That's the closest thing, and that's not easy. Okay. All right. So Tired says, can you not legally give information on the border situation, sir? Things. Oh, I saw your question. So Tired. You asked, like, can you come to the border and seek asylum? Look, it's going to be hard. The situation at the border changes sort of from day to day, and I think the chances of being let into the United States are probably pretty low, and it's dangerous as well. So yeah, I'm not in a position to advise on it because I don't know enough about the situation at the border right now to be able to even really give you an informed sort of, you know, overview of the situation, unfortunately. Okay. Good question. Hector says, is it possible to change where have my interview to a different office with a higher approval rate? Good question. The question is this: can you change asylum offices to have your case heard in a place with a higher approval rate than the one where your case is currently pending? Yeah. Look, it's not as simple as just asking, say, hey, you know, I'm in Miami and it has a low approval rate. I want my case to be in San Francisco with a higher approval rate. Can you please just transfer it there? It's not that easy. If you move, they'll transfer it. So yeah, if you're willing to actually move, like literally move where you live from, you know, the jurisdiction of the Miami office up to the jurisdiction of the San Francisco office, then yeah, they'll transfer the case. I personally think it's a good idea. I approve. I recommend it. You might hear people say it's unethical or something to like game the system. I'm perfectly fine with it. As long as you actually move. Don't commit immigration fraud. It would be immigration fraud to lie about it. Sometimes people will lie. They'll say, oh, yeah, I have this address now in San Francisco. I live in San Francisco, and they'll use some fake address or address of a friend or whatever. That's bad. That's immigration fraud. Don't do that. But if you're willing to actually move to take advantage of an office with a higher approval rate, I'm all for it. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. So let's see. Okay, gotcha. So Eureka clarified, I'm in the U.S. currently on a visitor visa, but we got accepted for exile in Ireland, so I want to stay in the U.S., claim asylum based on my current situation. Well, it depends on your status in Ireland. Okay, if you have permanent residency or asylum in or like refugee status in Ireland, then you almost certainly will not be able to get asylum in the United States due to what's called the firm resettlement bar. I talked about this in response to a question a few minutes ago, so if you want to watch back this live on YouTube, you can see that where I say more about this. But the short answer is, if you have something in another country before coming here that is either permanent residency or kind of like it in the sense that allows you to stay pretty much indefinitely there, then you will almost certainly not be able to get asylum here due to the firm resettlement bar. Okay. Is USCIS still using last in, first out, LIFO, for asylum interview scheduling, and how long does it usually take to get an interview after applying? Good questions. The question is this. How long will it take to get your asylum interview with USCIS if you're applying like right now? And is the government still using that last in, first out scheduling program for prioritizing interviews for people? The answer is there's a really good chance you're going to get your interview pretty much right away if you apply for asylum right now. Look, this is surprising news for a lot of people, because everyone knows of people in their communities and whatnot who have been waiting for many years for an interview, 4 years, 8 years, 12 years. So you're thinking, that person's been waiting for years. If I apply now, I'm going to wait for years too, so I can just sort of apply and forget about it and chill. No. Due to the last in, first out policy, and in combination with the fact that there's no one coming to the southern border effectively almost, that means that there's a lot of capacity to do affirmative asylum interviews. The asylum officers are doing tons of interviews right now. And because of that, they're actually doing LIFO. They're actually able to carry out that policy of trying to interview people as soon as they come, as soon as they apply. And so we are seeing, yes, with our clients, we're seeing many people are getting an interview within weeks of applying. So you got to be ready to go. I hope you have an asylum lawyer, and you got to be ready to get ready and present your case and practice and go all in very quickly. Diomerci Di Sadila says, I highly recommend this firm. They assisted me during my interview too. My statement was 2 or 3 pages, but when they took care of my case, it ended more than 100 pages. Well, we didn't make your statement 100 pages. Our legal brief plus your statement plus our legal brief plus the country conditions information was over 100 pages, but not just your statement, okay? And Dio Merci also says, thank you, Brian and the team. I waited for almost 8 years before getting my interview scheduled through Mandamus with Brian's help. Thank you, God. I won. There's another satisfied client. I love it. I love it when our clients jump on and our former clients jump on and talk about the positive experience they had with us. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We're not perfect, but we work really hard to help our clients. We work really hard to be responsive. We work really hard to give our clients the best possible chance of securing their future in America through asylum. And I appreciate it when people like Dio Merci come on to YouTube and say that, they waited 8 years and then they hired us and we did the Mandamus lawsuit and it worked. We got their interview and we won their case. Okay. Thank you for the recommendation, for the vote of confidence. I really appreciate it. All right. Nice. Okay. Can you tell us more about the mock interview? Is it same as having a lawyer? All right. So look, the question is, good question. The question is this. So how does the mock interview work with my law firm? Look, I think you should hire us to be your lawyers for the whole process, from before you apply through the interview through the very end. That's I think the best thing. But we understand that that's not always possible. Sometimes people can't do that because of time limitations or because of money, resource limitations. If you hire us just to do preparation for you, to do the mock interview, then that's all that we'll do. We do offer this as a standalone service, right? Where we do a mock interview, and then a day or two or three later, we do what's called a debrief session. Go back to the mock interview. The mock interview lasts up to 2 hours, and we're going to give you a brief overview of what to expect on the day of your interview, how things work, and we're going to give you kind of some strategy pointers about the main things that the officer really wants to know about. And then we're going to do a mock interview. We're going to go through pretty much everything you're going to experience on the day of the real interview so that you feel like you've been there. You feel like you've done that. That's the mock interview for 2 hours. Then we do a separate 30-minute debrief session where we give you feedback. We're taking notes during the mock interview to be able to give you pointers afterwards in the debrief session where we give you feedback. We tell you how to make your case stronger just by being clearer and telling your story in a more impactful way. We're not going to put words in your mouth. You need to tell the truth. You need to tell it in your own words. We're just going to help you to do that. And that's it. That's the mock interview process. Now, some people are able to hire us both for the mock interview and for representation on the day of the interview. And some people are able to hire us for the whole thing, to help them apply for asylum, to do the mock interview preparation, to represent them, but also to do our asylum roadmap filing where we deal with your declaration, your evidence, and legal brief from us. So look, we have packages for different people depending on different circumstances. We should talk about this. If you think you might want some kind of help, we should talk. Go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. Again, that's winasylum.com. Okay. All right, nice. Okay. I got applied for a green card. I got like 2 years. Juan Mejia says, this is an interesting situation. Juan Mejia says, sir, I applied for asylum in 2019. A year later, I applied to get a green card. I got it I can't tell if you applied for asylum in 2019 or you won asylum. I guess you won. I think you won asylum in 2019. A year later, you applied to get a green card. I got like 2 years ago, but received a letter about an asylum application pending. I won asylum in 2019. I'm not sure. One, I'm not following the situation. Are you saying you won asylum, applied for a green card, and then you got a letter saying, hey, you have an asylum application pending? Like, are you saying they denied your green card application because of that or what? I guess I'm not understanding what the situation is. Man, you guys like my spokespersons here, Sophia and Dio Merci. Sophia, thank you, Sophia. Sophia says, someone was asking about mock interview services. I hired Brian's services. I got my interview on July 1st. Trust me, what the attorney asked me was exactly the same I was asked at USCIS, being honest here. Awesome, thank you. So TikTok, you're not seeing this because you're not on YouTube. LinkedIn, Facebook, you're not seeing this, you're not on YouTube. On YouTube, one of our clients is saying that the mock interview that I was talking about, where we help prepare you for the interview, she says, trust me, what the attorney asked me was exactly the same as I was asked at USCIS, meaning we know what they're going to ask you. We know what they're going to ask you in your asylum interview. How do I know that? I'm a former asylum officer, okay? I've done thousands of immigration interviews from my time when I was a diplomat doing visa interviews, and between that and my time as an asylum officer doing asylum interviews and credible fear interviews. I have a pretty good sense for the kind of questions you get in an immigration interview. And I've taught my team this. I've taught my team how to do this practice interview. I've taught them what to expect in, what happens in an interview, what kind of questions the officer is going to ask based on your case, based on your circumstances, and based on the answers you give, like what kind of follow-up questions you're going to get in the interview. And so what Sophia is saying here is that she said, trust me, what the attorney asked, meaning in the mock interview of my law firm, was exactly what the same as I was asked at USCIS. So I think it sounds like we did a good job in the mock interview, making it very lifelike and giving her a chance to hear and consider these questions and to practice answering them and then to get our feedback on it. Okay. And then Dio Mercy says, for those who may wonder about the cost of this firm, they also have a payment plan. Your freedom has a price. Thank you. Yeah, it's expensive. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat that. It's expensive. We charge more than most immigration law firms. I think we do a lot more. I think that we add a lot more value. We have a lot of smart, sophisticated people working for us, and it costs a lot of money to hire smart, sophisticated people. And it costs a lot of money to hire people who actually care, who want to work hard and do a great job. It's expensive for me to hire those people that are high quality people like that. And so we charge more. We do more. I think we offer more than most immigration law firms. So you might, if you call around, you're talking to other immigration lawyers, you might be like, Brian's law firm is more expensive. There's a decent chance you'll find that. But I think it's like what Dio Mercy says here on YouTube. They say they also have a payment plan. Your freedom has a price. Where you might put it the opposite way and say, you can't put a price tag on your freedom and your safety and your future in America. We're talking about your future here. We're talking about your safety. We're talking about the life you want to build in America. So one way to look at it is like an investment, right? Are you willing to invest in your chances for success and invest in your future for this super, super important, super consequential thing that we're talking about with your asylum case? All right. Mohammed Bouin says, do you have an office in New York? No, but it doesn't matter. We help lots of people in New York. We have lots of clients in New York, both at USCIS and at the immigration court. It doesn't matter, Mohammed, that we're not there. We can help you there. Lots of clients there. We've had a lot of success there as well. If you want to talk with us about your situation, see if we might be in a position to help you, then I want you to go to winasylum.com. It's WINASYLUM.com, winasylum.com. That's where you can schedule a consultation with one of our asylum professionals. These are people that are trained to analyze your situation and see if we might be in a position to help you. If we think that we might be able to help you, we're going to explain to you exactly how to do it. We're going to lay out for you concretely what the steps will be. Okay. Sophia, you're my new favorite former client. Sophia says on YouTube, Brian's firm is charging whatever, but I searched for a month before hiring Brian. Attorneys didn't even know about the NOID and OID. The price is right and justified. Thank you. Thank you for that endorsement, Sophia. I appreciate it. Yeah, look, this calls to mind something that I think about from time to time, which is I think our clients will tell you that it's worth it, right? It's like it's worth it to get the best help possible. If you think that we're positioned to give you the best help possible, then it's worth it, right? We're talking about your future here. We're talking about something hugely important. So it's worth it. When they win their cases, they tell us it's worth it. It's definitely worth it to get this certainty and this confidence around their future. Sophia follows up with, Brian's firm is transparent and tells you beforehand and the entire asylum plan. Oh yeah. We don't like add on, additional attorney fees afterwards. Like it's in we have a contract that says exactly what we're going to do and what we're going to charge. And that's what we go by. Ada says, Chioma says, do you advise your clients to get a psych evaluation? Good question. The question is this: should you get a psychological evaluation in support of your asylum case? Usually we don't. We advise this, or we don't. Let me rephrase that. We don't go out of our way to advise clients to go out of their way to get a psychological evaluation if they haven't already had one. But if someone has been seeing a therapist or some kind of mental health provider, and they have an evaluation or they have a letter from that person, or let me rephrase that. If they've been seeing someone, then we would say, yeah, it probably makes sense to try to get a letter or some kind of formal evaluation from that person if we think it could be helpful to their case, depending on what the situation is and what the person might be in a position to say about the person, about the client. So that was a long way of saying we usually only recommend this if the client already has been seeing a mental health professional. We usually do not say, oh, you should go see one for the purpose of getting a letter or an evaluation for your asylum case. Okay. All right. Let's see. TikTok. I'm sorry I ignored you for a long time. Oh, yeah. Carr says, dual citizenship asylum. Can you talk a little bit about it, please? Be happy to. Question is this. Can you win asylum in America with dual citizenship? So let's say you're a citizen of 2 or more countries. Does this keep you from getting asylum? Make it harder? It makes it harder. Look, this is complicated. Almost everywhere in the United States, to win asylum, you have to show that you qualify for asylum with respect to every country of your nationality. So let's say you're a citizen of Cameroon and a citizen of Togo. You have to show that you meet all of the eligibility requirements for asylum with respect to Togo and separately with respect to Cameroon. That's usually hard. It's not impossible. We've done it. We've won this type of case for people, but it's hard, right? Most people can't do it. However, because of the way that our legal system works, if you have your asylum case heard in New York at the New York Asylum Office or the Newark branch in Manhattan, you only have to show eligibility with respect to a single country of nationality. So in the example I gave earlier, if you could show that, yes, you qualify for asylum vis-a-vis Cameroon, but not Togo, you win asylum because you showed asylum eligibility with respect to a country of your nationality. I know that sounds weird that the law is different in different places, but that's how it works. So this means that if you have dual nationality, you have a much better chance of winning asylum if your case is in New York. And you can move and have your case transferred there, almost certainly. You should actually move. Don't commit immigration fraud by lying about living in New York. But if you're willing to actually move, it may make sense. All right. So let's see. Where were we? Nice. Israr says, Sophia, I agree with you the same. I found them. They have the best team. Thank you, Israr. Appreciate that. KD Lethal says, hey, B, can one hire 2 different immigration attorneys? Look, it's like we would say no, except for, look, you could hire us to do just the preparation, just the mock interview. If you already have a lawyer and you want to stick with that lawyer and have them be your lawyer, like, and represent you at your interview, then we would agree only to do the preparation, the mock interview, which means a mock interview, a 2-hour mock interview, and then a 30-minute debrief session. We wouldn't like, yeah, that's the only thing that we would do with you if you have another lawyer and you want to stick with that lawyer. If you want to switch over to us, then we can do more than just the mock interview with you. That's how that works. Dio Merci, Di Sadila says, I went on the day of my interview with confidence. It was like repetition. Seems like my lawyer was the one interviewing me. Same questions. I recommended another client and has been trained as a VIP. Nice. That's from one of our clients. Thank you very much for saying those nice things on YouTube. Yeah, look, she's saying, so we're saying here, I went on the day of my interview with confidence. That's what this is about. Look, our mock interview, more than anything, it's about giving you confidence. It's about giving you peace of mind. The unknown is scary. When we don't know what we're getting into, but we know that it's a big deal. We know it's really important. We know there's a lot riding on it, but you don't know what's going to happen. That's scary. That's stressful. we do not perform well under stress. People perform better when they've got peace of mind, when they've got confidence. And that's exactly what one of our former clients is saying right here, that the mock interview did for them was it gave them confidence. They went into their real interview on the day of the real interview with confidence. Okay. They said, it seems like my lawyer was the one interviewing me. Same questions. Like the real interview felt like the mock interview, because at the mock interview, we asked them a lot of the same questions they ended up getting on the day of the real interview, because we know how these work, because I'm a former asylum officer and I have trained my team and everyone that we work with, we've trained them how to do these mock interviews. And that's why it's powerful. All right. Sophia says, last thing, you've said a lot, Sophia. Thank you for chiming in yet again. She says, I'm from India and I see many Indians here. I know there are many Indian attorneys in the US. Don't fall for that. Even though I'm in New York, it doesn't matter where your attorney is. So there you go. Who was that just a second ago asked, if we have an office in New York? Well, here's Sophia addressing that, saying, even though I'm in New York, it doesn't matter where your attorney is. So Sophia hired us and is being very kind and singing our praises right now on YouTube. TikTok, come on, man. TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, go to YouTube. That's where all my best stuff is. All our training materials, all our courses are on YouTube. Go to YouTube and search for Political Asylum Lawyers. That's the name of our YouTube channel. It's also the name of my law firm. And if you want to talk with us, I want you to go right now. Don't wait till this live is over. Go literally right now to winasylum.com. 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 Okay. Okay. So Cal Williams says, Israr says, agree, Sophia. Nice. Thank you. Cal says, I have the asylum interview next week. Am I able to contact you for a mock interview if I already have a lawyer? Look, well, there's two things here. There's the lawyer aspect, and then there's the next week aspect. If you already have a lawyer, yeah, I mean, I hope you should ask if your lawyer is cool with it, okay with you doing a mock interview with another lawyer. If they are, yeah, we can do that. If your interview is the first half of next week, it's too late. We won't have time. But if your interview is like Thursday or Friday, if you go literally right now to winasylum.com and schedule a consultation for tomorrow, I don't know if we have availability tomorrow. Ooh, I think we might have someone working on Saturday. Go to winasylum.com right now and check. If you can do your consultation tomorrow on Friday or Saturday and your interview is not till Thursday or Friday, then we could get you in for the mock interview on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. You have to be flexible. You have to say yes to whatever times we propose. We'll give you two options. You have to say yes to one of them. We don't have time with this short amount of time. We don't have time to go back and forth and negotiate about time. So you have to be flexible. You have to like take off work probably to do this. So Cal, go right now to winasylum.com and schedule this consultation right now. Okay. If you might want to get our help with this, let's talk in a consultation about it, because we need to see if you qualify. Not everyone qualifies for this. Okay. We've got another endorsement. This is a good night. All of our clients, not all of them, a lot of our former clients are jumping on to say nice things. On YouTube, Raphael Australia says, highly recommend this firm for their professionalism and support with my case. Special thanks to Francesca, Guy Wolf, and Eduardo Flores. I'm hopeful that my case will be approved after the MTR. You bet, Raphael. Thank you for your confidence in us, and thank you for coming on to say the kind words. I appreciate that. Camel says, hey, long time no see. How are you, Brian? Yeah, it's Camel. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're on here. Yeah, it's been a while. I haven't done that many lives lately, but now I think I'm to where I can be back in the groove. So you should see more from me. All right. TN says, how can I contact you if I have an interview next month and I want to do a mock interview? Go to winasylum.com. Go to ASYLUM.com. WINASYLUM.com. Winasylum.com. That's where you go to schedule the consultation with us. Look, your interview's next month. We should talk now. We should talk tomorrow. Try to schedule a consultation with us for tomorrow or Saturday or Monday, okay? So we can get on this early and move it forward, okay? We want to talk with you, T. If you are someone who likes to call more than go schedule things online, you can call us. Our phone number, you can find this phone number in our profile. If you go to my profile on TikTok or LinkedIn or Facebook, but the number is 713-909-0401. Again, 713-909-0401. Yeah. Shima says, I was approved for my asylum case last year. Now I'm afraid to apply for a green card since they are denying people. What do you recommend? This is an interesting question. Thanks for asking. Good question. The question is this. If you've won asylum and now you're thinking about applying for your green card, should you go ahead and do that and file that application? Or does it make sense to hold off? Because maybe you're hearing about, denials and just bad things happening to immigrants during the second Trump administration. Look, no, I think it makes sense to apply as soon as possible. There's no, in my opinion, I do not see a reason to wait at all. I think that the sooner that you apply for your green card is the better, because the sooner you can get your green card, the better, because you're more protected with your green card than you are with just your asylum status. And the fact that you are applying for a green card, I don't see that as putting you at any more risk than you're currently in. You're currently an asylee. You will remain an asylee if you apply for your green card. I mean, look, let me say this. It's true that at that stage, at the green card stage, they do go back and look at your file, and sometimes they try to find inconsistencies in your case file and try to take away your asylum status and deport you based on that. But as long as you are telling the truth about everything, and if you do this with a good lawyer, the risk, I think, is pretty low of that happening, such that I think it does make sense to go for that better status. The permanent residency is better than asylum. And it's also putting you on the path to citizenship, which is the most secure form of status that you can get. So yeah, I think it makes sense to move forward toward those things as quickly as possible. All right. Do you do G1 visa asylum? Says Binion. I don't know if I've ever done a G1, but I know what it is because I used to be a diplomat. So I'm familiar with this sort of thing. I don't know if we've ever had a client that came on a G1, but it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really make a difference to your asylum case as such. So yeah, we could definitely be happy to talk with you and see if we think we can help you. Jeez. Bato says, my wife submitted her I-589 about 11 years ago. I've been in the U.S. for 3 years, but USCIS has yet to add me to her case. Any advice? We've submitted documents to the Houston Asylum Office twice. Oh, disaster. Yeah, we had an issue today with adding a dependent to a case. It's not easy. It is not easy, Bato. Here's, two things. The question is this. How do you get added to your spouse's case as a dependent in their pending asylum case if you've made that request of the asylum office maybe multiple times, but it just hasn't happened? They haven't approved it. What can you do to make it happen? Well, don't give up. Follow up again. Email them and call them and say, hey, we've submitted this request for me to be added to my wife's, your wife should be the one to inquire and say, hey, I made this request for my husband to be added to my case as a dependent. Could you please tell me whether that has been done? If so, tell me the date, please, on which he was added into the system. And if it hasn't been done, could you please do it right away? And please let me know once it's done. I would send a couple emails to that effect. If that doesn't work, you could consider, this is interesting, you could consider suing them to force them to add you as a dependent in a mandamus lawsuit. But listen, you said that your wife's case has been pending for 11 years. Here's how you get added as a dependent. She brings a mandamus lawsuit to force them to schedule the interview. That gets their attention. In that context, if you have a lawyer helping you and you've sued them to get the interview and you're asking them to add the dependent and the interview gets scheduled, they will add the dependent. They will do it at the latest on the day of the interview, but almost certainly once the interview is scheduled, if you remind them of your request or make a new request to be added as the dependent, they will do it. They will eventually do it. So you can sort of kill two birds with one stone here. You can finally get the interview for your wife and you can get added as a dependent, starting with suing the government in a mandamus lawsuit. At 11 years, there is an extremely high chance. Look, I can't guarantee anything. I can't talk in absolutes, but I assess with very high confidence, extremely high confidence, that you will be successful in a mandamus lawsuit enforcing this interview if you bring that lawsuit. We should talk about that. Go to winasylum.com, Bato, please. WINASYLUM.com. Winasylum.com. Okay. My friend Dio Merci says, I fired my previous lawyer to work with Brian's firm. That's the best decision. I respect all the lawyers, but Brian's team was my best. They're available when needed. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that that our team took good care of you. We stress that. I really stress with my team how important it is to be responsive and to try to be empathetic and to try to work well with our clients. It's important to me, so I'm glad. It makes me really proud and happy to hear that it sounds like we've met that mark with you. So thank you for saying that. Danny G says, I came to the U.S. on a B2 visa in 2016. I have a pending asylum case. I have no criminal record, no traffic tickets. Can ICE detain me if they stop me by accident? Good question. The question is this. Can ICE detain you if they come across you, let's say by accident, or just, by some means they contact you and they realize, okay, you came here on a tourist visa several years ago. You applied for asylum. You have an asylum application pending with USCIS. You're waiting for your interview. You haven't committed any crimes, but nevertheless, you have contact with ICE and they're like, ooh, this guy overstayed his visa. He has an asylum application pending. Can they detain you? The answer is yes, they can, but they probably will not. It's not impossible. It could happen, but I think the risk of you being detained by them in this kind of circumstance is pretty low, okay? If you haven't done anything wrong, you stayed past the time you were supposed to stay here, but you have an asylum application pending with USCIS, the risks of being detained and deported are low. They're so low that I wouldn't worry about it. I don't think you need to worry about it. Okay. Mr. Brady, I have a question about evidence. When the documents are not in English, can the applicant translate the documents themselves? No, it needs to be someone else. I recommend you use a professional. Okay. Thomas Yergetu says, big thanks to Brian Manning's firm and my attorney a nudge. His mock interview prep saved my case. He coached me on a question that came up in the real interview. My asylum was approved in 2 weeks. The price is worth every penny. Love it. Man. Guys, I'm really looking forward. I'm going to go back and I'm going to take screenshots of some of these comments where you guys are bragging on my team, and I'm going to show them to my team, to a nudge, and all the other people that have been mentioned tonight. Valentina, Madeline, Roman a few times, a nudge. I feel like I'm missing one or two that you guys have mentioned, but there's been a lot of people mentioned that have gotten props at my firm tonight. So thank you for mentioning that. You're going to make their day when I tell them that you had great things to say. Look, Thomas, guys, TikTok, if you haven't figured this, if you guys haven't gotten this yet, YouTube's where I have my best stuff. It's where the action is. Usually when I'm answering questions, I answer mainly from YouTube. I do a little bit on TikTok, a little bit on LinkedIn, a little bit on Facebook, but mainly YouTube. So go to YouTube. That's where all my best stuff is. Go to YouTube and search for Political Asylum Lawyers. That's the name of my law firm. It's also the name of my YouTube channel. But anyway, back to Thomas's comment, who says, the mock interview prep saved my case. He coached me on a question that came up in the real interview. When he says coach, let me just point of clarification. When Thomas says coached, correct me if I'm mistaken here, Thomas, but I think I know what you mean. I think what you're saying is we told you a question that's likely to come up. Not we coached you on like, here's exactly what you should say, because we don't put words in people's mouth. We want you to tell your story. We don't tell you what to say. We tell you that you need to tell the truth. We tell you that you need to be 100% honest, open, transparent, but we just help you to tell your story more effectively by giving you tips and feedback. But what Thomas is saying here is, sounds to me, Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you said the mock interview prep saved my case, and that there was it sounds like there was a critical question that came up in the real interview that was probably a tough one that I'm guessing you wouldn't have known about, or wouldn't have expected, and maybe not have done as great of a job answering if you hadn't practiced it, if it hadn't come up in the practice interview. That's what our lawyers are trained to do. That's why I hire smart, sophisticated, hardworking people that ask the right questions, that are well trained. I try to train them well, and they just are good at what they do. And they ask good questions like this, key questions that prepare you, that can even, as Thomas put it, save your case. Okay. And then Thomas says, the price is worth every penny. Very kind of you. Thank you. Glad you think so. Wahid says, there's no judge assigned to my asylum case. I have a master calendar hearing in 3 months. Is it possible to reschedule my hearing? Yeah, it's possible. The best thing to do would be to get it canceled. You can submit what are called written pleadings, where you basically do on paper what would normally be done on the day of the master calendar hearing. And then you also submit a motion to schedule the individual hearing, where you say, hey, judge, look, I'm also submitting these written pleadings. Therefore, we don't really need to do the master calendar hearing. I just did it on paper. So can you please cancel the master calendar hearing and schedule the individual hearing? And usually they say yes. We do that with most of our clients. That's usually what we decide is the best strategy to do with most of our clients. And so we could do that with you. If you want our help, go to winasylum.com to schedule your consultation. Maha says, what is the success rate to win asylum on religious grounds? Neither USCIS nor the immigration courts publish like publicly available data about the breakdown of approval rates by case type. So I don't know. I don't know. Mohammed MK88 says, Mr. Bryan, you're a very good lawyer. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mohammed. Very kind of you. He says, your knowledge is the best. Nice. Tank R Fan 101 says, it's been 2 months. I was interviewed with affirmative asylum application. I'm still waiting for a decision. What would you suggest? Please and thank you. Email and call the asylum office and say, look, I have my interview on X date. Here's my A number. Could you please contact the officer? Forward this email to the officer, please, and let them know that like I'm ready. I'm happy to provide any other information or documents that might be helpful to help them conclude the case. By the way, could you please let me know when I might be able to expect a decision? Sometimes that works. Rarely, but sometimes. If you applied for asylum 5 or more years ago, you should consider suing to force the decision. Oh, nice. Francesca, I'm glad to hear from you, Francesca. Thank you for coming online to say this. She says, hi, Bryan, all caps. Thank you so much to you and your whole team, Maria Jose, Daniela, Paula, Maria. The work that you do is from another level. I couldn't have won my asylum case without you guys. Super. Thank you, Francesca. Not going to lie, Francesca. Not going to lie. That was not an easy case to win. Which is not to say that you didn't deserve asylum. You absolutely deserve asylum. I'm so thankful that you got it. But the particular facts of your case were such that there's a lot of judges and officers that could deny that. We fought, what I'm trying to say, if indelicately, is we fought really hard. Let me rephrase that. I'm really proud of our team. I'm proud of the people that you named and other people that worked on your case as well, because they worked really hard and they came up with clever legal arguments and I think did a great job of preparing you. You were a great client, Francesca, and they did a great job of preparing you and advocating for you. So thank you for taking the time to leave these awesome, very nice comments. I really appreciate that. Nice. Can I move around, travel around domestically in the U.S. while being an asylee? Well, asylee means you already won your asylum case. The answer to that is yeah. Well, look, you can move around. Yeah, you could. It doesn't matter whether you have already won asylum or you have a pending asylum case. You can move. You can travel around the U.S. Can you move and like physically like move your house to where you live to another place? Yes, as long if you are in if you came to the border and ICE said, hey, gave you a paper that said you need to ask our permission before you move. Sometimes they do that. In that case, you would need to get their permission before moving. But other than that, yeah, you're free to move. But you need to do a change of address form as soon as you move and file that with USCIS or the immigration court, wherever your case is pending, okay? Tonk R fan says, thank you so much for your detailed answer. My application was pending since 2015. Another nice question. Another nice comment. When a client says, when these people have your case in their hands, you'll go on the day of the interview with peace of mind. Natalia, Valentina, Guy, Maria, and Laura. Very nice of you. Super, super nice of you. Thank you for making that comment. Look, that's going to be it for tonight. I'm Brian Manning. I used to be an asylum officer with the government, with USCIS at the Houston Asylum Office, but now I'm an asylum lawyer. And my law firm helps immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. It doesn't matter where you live. We're based in Texas, but it doesn't really matter because we help people all over the country. Francesca, who just commented a second ago, that was an immigration court case, and we traveled. We flew across the country. One of our lawyers flew from Houston to another part of the country to be there in person for that hearing and won her case. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter whether you're in California, New York, Florida, Colorado, Illinois, Texas. We help people all over the country. If you want to talk with us, we would love to get to know you, get to understand your situation. And Thomas, thanks for clarifying. He said, when I say he coached me, I mean he showed me how to answer my key questions in the best way to support my case, not by telling me what to say, but how to say it. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Sometimes we'll say in the mock interview, or actually in the debrief session after the mock interview, we'll say, look, I asked you this question. You said this. That was a little confusing, or it didn't quite strike the right tone. You may want to consider restating it to be clearer or to make the point better. And, some ways that you could consider saying it would be maybe something like Like we're just telling you literally, as Thomas just said, not what to say, like not substantively what to say. You say what you need to say, what you want to say based on the truth, based on the facts of your case. We just may make some suggestions about how to say it better, more clearly to be understood in the right way. So anyway, go to winasylum.com. We would love to talk with you in a consultation to see if we might be able to help you. And you do that, you schedule that consultation at winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com, winasylum.com. We want to talk with you. Go to winasylum.com. I'm Brian Manning. It's a pleasure and an honor to support you in your asylum journey. Thank you for being with us. Bye. Have a good night, everyone. See you soon. Bye, guys. See you on YouTube. Bye, guys. LinkedIn.